Drafting worldwide, wide. Welcome back to the Revit Garage project. On Revit, elevations are already set up from the very beginning, as we had talked about in the past. It's basically these symbols that define the elevations. So just to talk about those again very quickly, if I look at this symbol right here and I click on the little triangle part, this line shows up. So right now what this line represents is your field of view. So if I would pick this line up and move it here, it's really going to be a section that's cutting through the building, and I'm cutting through this door, and I won't be able to see any of this stuff back here. I can demonstrate that by double clicking on that, and you can see that that's actually a section view. So if I go back to my plan view, first floor, and I click on this little triangle and I bring this back here and then click it again, now you can see that I actually see that elevation view. So the one thing I can do is I can just go around and click these and make sure that they're actually where they're supposed to be. The other thing that can happen with these is this line can sometimes end up being something like that, where I'm not going to see this part of the building. I'm just going to move it over and make it real drastic. So right now, if I look straight ahead, I would not see this window. So if I double click that, you can see I can only see the very end of the building there. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan, I'm going to click that, and I'm going to put this back in place, stretch this out as needed, and I can even move it up a little bit like that. So the next thing is, these elevation symbols are a very big departure from what traditional elevation symbols would look like. So I can change the look of these. So to actually do this, to change the look of these, I'm going to select it and I'm going to edit my type, and under here it has graphics, elevation tag, and it's shown as a 1/2 inch square. So I'm going to choose elevation mark body circle filled arrow. I'm going to say OK, apply that, and now I have these things that look like more traditional elevation symbols. So what will happen eventually is these things will get populated whenever I put these elevation views onto sheets. So that was just a little quick recap of what these should look like, how they work. Let's go to the elevation views by going to our project browser, and I'll just click on my east elevation. So the first thing I notice right now is my crop region is visible. All these things, my levels, none of them are lined up. So I'm going to, first of all, bring these over just a little bit past the building, and I want them to all line up. And then I'm going to bring this side over. So I'll start out up here, and I'm going to select it, grab the little tiny dot, and I'll bring them in about right there. And I'll do the same with this one. They should snap into place. Sometimes it'll grab for them, sometimes it won't. And this one right here, I'm just going to bring this dot back just so that the line is underneath the word completely. Okay. So I can show this in a few different views. I can have this right now is, if I come down to my visual style, this is hidden line. If I did wireframe, it would show everything going through the building, so I don't want to do that. And I could also show it in realistic. So right now, whenever I show this as realistic, I never actually went in and assigned a siding. So I'm just going to select that wall. That's my custom wall I made from the very beginning, and I'm going to go back in and prep this for my elevation view. So under structure, I'm going to click edit, and for my finish, which is 3/4 inch, instead of having a by category material, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to come down here to this AEC materials, and I'm going to look for a siding. I don't think there is any kind of vinyl siding as a default material, so we're going to look for something that's similar to this. I think it might be called clapboard or something. So once I've found that, it's called siding clapboard, I have to actually hit this little tiny arrow and that puts that material into my current project. This is just looking at all the ones I have available, but I have to hit the little tiny arrow to add them to my current project. So I select that, say apply, okay, and I can also come up here to graphics and say use render appearance. And if I wanted to change the color of my siding, I should be able to do that as well under my appearance. And it's basically using this image right now, so if I wanted to try to change the color, I don't know if it's going to do anything or not. So I'll just pick a random color here, like a green that would stand out. I say apply, okay, okay, apply, okay, and it didn't do anything to that color. So if I wanted to use a different color siding, then I have to actually find an image with that. So that's what this would look like in realistic view, and this is probably how I would end up printing that. Bring this back just a little bit, and just to show you real quickly in hidden line, it looks like that. And I could look at shaded, which I'm not a big fan of, consistent colors. So I really think the realistic is the best view for this. So at this point, I could start annotating. So to annotate this, first of all, I have something going on with these windows. So one is brown, one is white. So let's talk about windows a little bit. So to fix these windows, basically what's going on is the one has the sill on the inside and the other one doesn't. So if I look at this window, I have to figure out which one is which. So I'm assuming this wooden part should be on the inside and that this white part should be on the outside. So all I have to do to change that is I can click on this window and I should be able to flip the instance. So flip facing, so I just right click, flip facing, and now the white's on the outside. The other thing that I need to make sure of, whenever I place windows, I want those to have a head height, meaning the top of the window should be at 80 inches or 6 foot 8 inches. So I can take that out and I can make that 6 foot 8, and now the top of the window is actually pretty close to aligning with the top of the door, because this should be a 6 foot 8 door. So the head height of that is 6 foot 8. The only difference is we have the brick mold or the trim around the door, whereas we don't have that with the windows. So at this point I would just kind of take a look at the rest of these and get those into the same order as the others. So like this little top foundation, I can click that little button right there, bring this up, clean that up a little bit, maybe bring all of these out a little bit, turn my visual style to realistic, click that, right click, flip facing, make sure the head height is at 80 inches or 6 foot 8. And that's looking pretty good. We have some extra levels in there. I'll show you what those are for later. I basically just created those to see how much attic space I would have. And I can go to south, change my visual style to realistic. Doors look good. Click this, click the little button there, the 4's in the way. Bring this over. Bring this little dot up, clean that up, make those look good. Click this, bring those ends over this way, look at west, and looks like I have a different scale for, that's 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, this one's 3/16. So I'm going to make these 3/16 to match. You can see these got a little bit smaller. I'm going to change the scale so that they're all the same size. And I'll clean this up a little bit. So now once I have everything cleaned up and looking good, I can come in here and start by getting rid of the levels that I don't use or don't need. I'm just going to delete those. I have all the view settings correct, so I'm going to also turn my crop region visible off. I'm going to put some slope arrows on this roof, so I'm going to come up to annotate, and I'm going to basically stay in this annotate category here. So I am going to start out by looking for my slope, so spot slope, and I'm just going to choose this right here, drop that, and instead of having this arrow, I'm going to come up here while that's still selected. I'm going to change that to a triangle, and I'll select it again, come up, change that to a triangle. I got my 9/12 roof pitch there. Go through and do the same thing on the other side. It's pretty easy to tell that they're both the same, but might as well just throw that on there. Then I need to call out the siding. So I'm going to come up to text, and I'm going to use this 2-segment leader every time, or 99% of the time. So I'm going to start by an angled leader, and then I'm always going to have a horizontal tag over to the text. And I can just call this something vinyl siding. So another one that I would call out here is this is a good place to add a note for your ridge line. I'm just going to call that ridge. I could come down here and throw some details in on this, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to do that in our section view instead. And I could call out my footing. So I have an 8 by 16 concrete footing, and here I have 8-inch CMU foundation with parge, with, we'll say, 1/4 inch thick waterproof parge. And then I also need to call out my doors and windows. So instead of actually doing a note for those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my annotate category, and I'm going to choose tag by category, and I'm going to drop these tags on here. And the problem with this is the numbering is all out of whack. So this probably means that I've put 20 different windows in here, and it's going by all the different ones that I put in. So what I can do is I can double click this, and I can make one, and if I say you are changing the type parameter, this could affect many elements, yes, so it'll update all those to 1, and I'm going to make that door number 1 as well. So then I can go into my other views, and I'm going to delete this tag, not sure how that got there. So I'm going to go into my other views, north, and I'm going to tag this window as well. I'll just drag the tag over there, turn my crop region off, and turn my crop region visible, and I'll bring these in closer. Sometimes these have, I think if I change them in one view, they change in another view as well. So we'll have to look out for that. I already have all these materials called out in other views, so I'm not going to call them out in this view as well. What I am going to do is I'm going to turn my section off. So if I do visibility graphics, where I can come over here and I can click edit, or I can type VG on the keyboard, and I come up here, instead of model categories, I'm going to go to annotation categories. I'm going to scroll down here to sections, and I'm going to turn sections off, uncheck the box, say apply, okay, and it disappeared. Real quick, I'm going to just double check my head height, still good, and I can move on to the next one.